Welcome to the Relationship Workout for Men podcast, season 24, Navigating Emotions in Relationships. We're in episode 2, Naming Emotions. And today's guest is Lindsey Sherwin, an artist, registered drama therapist, expressive arts therapist, practitioner, mental health counselor, and social entrepreneur based in New York City. In today's episode, we're going to explore how men can better identify and articulate their feelings on a journey to realizing healthier relationships. So this is a big topic for men, naming emotions. So what do you think about this, Lindsey?
Oh, I think it's so important because, like you said, Vince, so many men particularly have trouble with naming the emotions and even just how they're feeling right now in their body. It's just been so looked down upon in society to express yourself verbally, and because of that fact, a lot of them do not choose to verbally express out of shame or fear of being authentic, and I think that being able to name an emotion will help with the relationship because that other person can fundamentally, on the most basic level, know how you're feeling. And the other thing I wanted to just share too is that there's like this caveat with authenticity, because you can still be authentic, and most men are. They're very straight to the point. They're like, I don't want to do that, or I do want to do that. Yeah, hell yeah, let's go, let's dive in, right? Without really thinking about it. But when one does think about it, that can just add value to the overall well-being, right? The psychological well-being and the social well-being. So it's not to say that they're not authentic. It's more like, if I can use how I'm feeling right now and name that and just be aware of it, then it'll really help me out. But I do understand when men have told me as clients, working with me either in a group setting or individually, I don't really know how I feel. I don't really care. That was a big thing when I started out, especially with younger men, teens and young adults. A lot of the people that I used to work with were males in the setting, and I would kind of say, how are you doing right now? Or I'd say, like, how are you feeling? And then I started to realize in my journey working with men of all different age ranges, I don't know, I don't really care. So it's been suppressed, it's been subdued in such a way that causes them to feel like it's not okay. That's the societal impact. But we also want to kind of point out that socially we get that, and that's really hard to go against because it's just been ingrained for decades and decades. But how do you feel? Do you feel better when you express? You'll start to see that you do, and that's when they really say, wow, this is fun. This makes me feel better in my body, and people are starting to acknowledge and recognize and understand me a lot better. So that's why I want to keep doing this with naming my feelings.
So there's two parts there. One is being able to name your feelings, and the second part you talked about is being the suppressed part of it. Just clicking on naming it, because I know when I wrote my book Relationship Workout, I didn't even know all these emotions existed. Like, I had to do research, and I found all these words of emotions that it didn't even occur to me exist. I mean, I knew the words, I knew the definitions of these, but it didn't occur to me, and I still can't connect those, like how I'm feeling. If you were to ask me how I'm feeling with those words, because there's also levels of intensity on these emotions as well. So how do you help a guy get that vocabulary? It's like first of all, it seems like it's got to be a more important part of your conversation, how you're feeling, as opposed to what you're thinking. But second, it's just knowing what are my options? What's my menu of options? Because I don't know. I just don't know. I really don't know. How do you help a guy with that?
Yeah. So we go through the basic emotions, which is the therapeutic encounter, right? Like, understanding if somebody came in and said, like, I really don't know any emotions, it's very unlikely that someone cannot name like fundamental emotions, or the basic ones like joy, anger, surprise, disgust, shame, love, sadness, grief, guilt, or fear. Like, those are really the main ones. And even if you don't name it using a word, you're naming it through your behavior. We can use the word, right, to help get underneath the behavior, which is usually what men struggle with. They have more behavioral behavioral issues right? Like diagnosis wise, there's just more of more of that happens through the research, and like clinically you can see like conduct disorder and like antisocial personality disorder. Like these are usually in the clinical space. If anybody is listening that's like a therapist or a counselor, like that might resonate. But really, like if you're just working with men as like a coach, or like a relationship coach, and you're like noticing like, wow, you get really you really get upset with that. Like, and do you know how you feel about that when that person talks to you in that way? I don't know, man. Like they're just yelling at me. Like I want it to stop. Like she's just getting on my nerves. Like okay, there is an emotional awareness or emotional intelligence that has to be developed there that can help with that situation. So it might not require you to go through the list of emotions with the person, because they might say, look, I don't need a list, I just need to change this. Okay, so we can point out to them, I'd point out, look, it sounds to me like you're obviously upset. Like you can just do these basic counseling skills. Like, yeah, it's upsetting, right? I hear that, validate that, but then also we go into sort of, and you can do this in different ways, right? Like you can embody what that feels like. Again, I always resort to getting out of the person's head, because the more you start to unravel what's that emotion, let's name it, it becomes like lethargic. It becomes like sort of not interesting to the person, especially like a man doesn't want to go through all these like cognitive. It's more like, how do I deal with this? And we gotta pace it. So I'd say, yeah, we can deal with this situation. Let's acknowledge what the pattern is. Let's see what happens between you. And then we can say, you've established that this feeling is not to your liking. It's not pleasurable. It's not pleasant, right? It's conflictual. You get upset. You're not feeling good about it. Okay. We phrased it rather than said you're angry, right? You're mad, right? You're always jumping into shame or disgust with this person. Like we don't have to kind of go that far. I think it's more important when we're dealing with emotions, or at least naming them and pointing them out. Yes, I acknowledge that this happens to you. Men are creatures of action. And I've noticed that the more I talk, the more they kind of shut down. So the goal is not to talk their ear off. It's more to be like, okay, we can validate, I'm doing my job and my responsibility as a professional to point out to you. That's why you're with me, right? To point out what's going on. But then let's go right into like, how do we resolve this? Especially an aware man that's like, I know there's a problem, Lindsey, and I really want to resolve this. Okay, let's play these roles. Let's reverse roles. Let's see what that feels like. They need to develop empathy. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that, because it always comes back to that. Right, with people in general, but men have a need to develop their empathy. So these kinds of issues mitigate themselves, and they're happier. They're happier with the relationship. They're happier with themselves. They feel confident that they can build a relationship. So I think there's so many different ways to do it, but really limiting the cognitive approach and really getting right into like, let's play this out. I had a man who came in and said, like, I had a fight with my girlfriend. We were on the phone. It was an hour-long call. It was back and forth, back and forth. Instead of dissecting the problem on that phone call, do you want to keep doing this? Does this feel good to you? Okay, no, it doesn't. We know that. Let's play this out. I want to hear how you talk to me in my role, and then I'll reverse and share with you what it might feel like for the woman on her end to receive what you're telling me. That's how that empathy develops.
So it sounds like I just need the basic, to name my emotions, I just need the basics. Like, I'm upset, I'm anxious, I'm frustrated. I mean, those basic words, I think us men, we definitely know that. And I think you made a really interesting point that if we just say that, it helps us take the next step to the empathetic part, and also helps maybe our partner be more empathetic too. Although we're clearly showing that we're angry, at least bringing that into the conversation allows us to go to that step of why we feel angry. Because it just feels like we go right to action, like, I want this to stop. Just stop. And I loved how you said the more we hear, the less we engage. Like, that is so true. I mean, it's just I just want it to stop. Okay, let's talk about the feeling. I'm upset. Then what if okay, so I say I'm upset. Then what do I do? Like, what do I do with that? I'm like, okay, I'm upset. So she knows I'm upset. My body language is showing upset. I say that. Now what do I do? Like, what do I do after that?
Yeah, so I think in terms of action taking, it's more like, okay, you've acknowledged that you're upset, right? Let's just sort of recap this. And now I need to do something to repair this. You want to repair this, so it's also, what's the objective here? You know you're feeling, and now you're telling me you want to repair it, you want to do something with it. It's sort of like what we do as an actor. I'll just tie that back into our conversation around drama therapy, right? Like, as an actor, you're thinking of an objective. What is your objective in the scene to do with this other person? You want to repair? So to repair the problem, to address the discrepancy in what I said and what you said, to gain clarity, gain control, change the narrative around the dynamics, so it's not centered on me, but it's both of us. So we're looking to, what are you looking to accomplish? And so I think that's a big piece too. Like, if I really think through what I've done with people, it's like they can acknowledge the feeling, okay, I'm ready to take action, I'm ready to do something, because that is action. Do you know what you want to do? You want to get to an objective? So that's like being an actor. And then we go into playing that out. It's like rehearsing for life. You are rehearsing and practicing life skills so you are able to talk to this person in a real moment-to-moment situation where you don't need this kind of hand-holding, and you know what to say, you know what's needed in this situation, and you know how to say it. And that can require languaging, that can require body language. It often requires everything, because if you're overactivated in your mind, your body is going to just completely sort of boil. And right, like if you're upset, you're either gonna boil and you're gonna get really mad, or you're gonna get more aggressive, or you might be passive and you might say something condescending. So the tone is important. We got to look at all these components of the person, right? The person as a holistic being that has tone. They have prosody in the way they say something, cadence, their affect, the way they, position themselves. Like, these are all components that most people don't think about. They just go and live their life. So that's why they need to be trained. Because if you don't work on them, it's sort of, we're people. And if we don't work on the skills, we're sort of like just sitting there, like a mold, like a piece of model magic that hasn't been molded, right? Like, we have to work on it to be able to exercise it effectively with another human being.
So in our next episode, we're going to talk about what do we do with emotions. And I really want to talk through a scenario that I think all us men experience. Our wife's unhappy. She's probably told us what she needs 3, 4, 5,000 times, and we didn't hear it. So finally, she's upset, and we hear her as nagging us because she's now for the nth time telling us. And so we feel frustrated because we feel attacked, we feel unjustly, because we don't remember all the other times she told us because we weren't paying attention. And I feel upset. My objective should be to be empathetic and dive into what she needs, but it's really hard for me to get to that place because I'm feeling attacked, and I want just this to stop when the objective. So can we take that in the next episode, in what do we do with our emotions? Because I think that kind of scenario, if you will, it happens to me. Every guy I've ever talked to, it happens to them all the time. So
yeah.
We'll close it here in this episode. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next episode. I'm really, really looking forward to that discussion. Thank you.